This is Xenofeminist Hope and Dread, or How to Move Beyond Patriarchal Technocapitalism, by Ingrid Hooft, and I apologize how I say everyone's names, in Hypatia. This is an invited review essay. So yeah, I want to know how to get past. I mean, he's just got the coolest name, paper name I've seen in a while. And look at this. This is just fantastic. Opening first line. We were just talking about how to write philosophy that it catches people's attention. Who said manifestos are dead? I mean, that fucking kicks ass. That's a kick-ass first sentence. Some 30 years after the publication of Donna Haraway's illustrious A Cyborg Manifesto, yeah, that's a famous thing. The mathematicians are unexpected. 50 years after Valerie Solana's angry and delightful Scum Manifesto, and 170 years after Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels' influential Communist Manifesto, a new manifesto in town, in fact, bears traces of all these and then some. The Xenofeminist Manifesto. And, I mean, I apologize, but I mean, anytime you're talking about like a Xeno thing, I get Xenomorph in my head, and I'm thinking H.R. Geiger and Alien. So that's why I got like Alien vibes already, too. Which, I like that movie. It's very cool. So, this manifesto, which comes in a gorgeously designed booklet version as well as in a colorful and nostalgic 80s computer culture website with nerdy hexadecimal page numbers and related Twitter account, is a work from the Xenofeminist collective Laboria Cubanics. The name of this collective, whose members are from various parts of the globe, is actually an anagram of Nicolas Bourbaki, a largely French collective of mathematicians in the early 1900s who sought to affirm abstraction, rigor, and generalization. Is great. Yeah. Together with a firm foot in cyberfeminism and a strong penchant for the abstract and universal by way of the logic of computing against the arguably flawed universal of nature, the manifesto also clearly bears the marks of feminist eco-criticism, new materialism, queer theory, and technological accelerationism. The two books under review bring various activisms and insights together in an original way, and do so clearly with an eye toward reviving the cyber-feminist spirit through, and among others, ideas from Shulamit Firestone's Dialectics of Sex. This pairing certainly had me excited since, as I argue elsewhere, I am, together with Haraway's original Cyborg Manifesto, firmly of the opinion that feminism of all kinds should intervene in and contribute even more radically to the contemporary technoculture and philosophy of technology. This is because clearly new media and genetic technologies are at present some of the most powerful techniques by which we live and probably will live in the near future, and because these technologies are intimately interwoven with Eurocentric masculinism, heterosexism, militarism, and capitalism. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things. Like, the current state of technology is a boys' club, at least here in America, for the most part. It's changing, but not fast enough. And then so you've got this sort of Eurocentric masculinism, bad behavior, especially at places like famous for it, Uber, militarism with the boys with toys, and capitalism, which is beaten dead horse at that point. Oh man, what'd I do? Remind me if I don't switch over, because I'm reading down it, and I always feel bad when I forget to switch. But whatever's. It was only the first page or something, so that was only from here down. Okay. Yet, though I eagerly opened the books and websites with a healthy amount of nerdy feminist expectation, the latter got immediately overshadowed with the sense of impending dread. Yeah, I mean, anytime you're this excited for something, like, the title of this was, like, super exciting, and it didn't disappoint so far. That first paragraph was exciting, but you're expecting it to go downhill so fast. I mean, 98% of the time when there's something I'm expecting to read that's good in philosophy, I am woefully disappointed. It's terrible. Like, philosophy's not good. I was hoping that the manifesto would be groundbreaking, but despaired that it would not be so, or worse still, that the book by Hester and the manifesto by the collective would ultimately manifest, and I use this term on purpose, themselves as any other text or image today, merely traveling, as internet critic Jodi Dean argues in her excellent Communicative Capitalism, Circulation, and the Foreclosure of Politics, as mere bits and bytes through the wires and servers of exactly those contemporary media technologies that have as their primary purpose capitalist circulation and consumption of radicality. I mean, basically, this is just saying, look, is it just more meat for the grinder of Twitter and all that stuff? I mean, that's what most of this stuff is. After all, hope and terror are, in following the modern Cold War logic of ideological seduction and technological deterrence, the twin sisters, or perhaps twin brothers, of our fundamentally Janus-faced, consumerist, and unsustainable lifestyles. Yeah, I mean, this is what they sell you, hope and terror, through the media. Through such lifestyling, capitalism endlessly seeks first to produce and then cater to new needs and desires, and I would add, even possibly to that seemingly authentic desire for feminist empowerment and emancipation through those very new technologies. Obviously, the way in which the book's titles and their simultaneously estranging yet also familiar use of the prefix xeno, its roots in the Greek xenos, meaning strange, but also in its infamous connection to xenophobia as the darker political manifestation of the prefix. Oh, come on, what about xenomorph? Managed to arouse both expectation and dread in me, illustrates that the stakes for a feminist capable of confronting today's militarist, heteronormative, and masculinist techno-capitalist are, at present, very high indeed. I mean, I should also mention, seeing as I'm broadcasting on Twitch and then later on YouTube, that Twitch's demographics, if you look them up, are mostly young men. So not entirely, but mostly young men. And so this is in the heteronormative, militarist, masculine, techno-capitalist. Twitch is in this area too. So this is, I mean, I don't know who any of you people are. I mean, I'm looking over at my stats page here. I see there's people watching. Chances are you are, male, basically, and you're not going to be over a certain age. But of course, given the content I put out, I can't say that it's not going to be the typical content that you're going to find on Twitch. So I may be bucking the demographics here. I doubt it, but I may be. Okay. The book's indeed admirably... Shane, what's up? Someone say young male techno-capitalist. That is definitely Shane. And if you want young male techno-capitalism, you should go check out Shane's channel, because you're going to see Gundam making like no one ever saw before. No, that's not fair to Shane. Shane is a historian and sociologist with multiple degrees and is really... delightful person, and you can Gundam is just war exactly, that's why I brought it up. So yeah, how are you, Shane? I hope you're well. Everyone, if you don't know Shane, go drop him a follow. You can ask him basically anything about history and Lord of the Rings universe, and he may have a very intelligent answer for you. Jungian techno-capitalism, yes, the universal mind of techno-capitalism. Aristotle, Shay and I were talking about how much we love Elon Musk. Aristotle also, should also give Aristotle a shout out too, while he's here. I know, you guys are so Elon fanboys. Yeah. So yeah, Aris is our, another philosopher here on Twitch. If anyone doesn't know, you should go check him out. Drop him a follow if you're interested in philosophy. He does ancient and ethics and technology, and you can ask him. And he does more of an Ask Me Anything style philosophy thing. So you're free to basically ask him anything you want. And he shit posts as good as the rest of them, or anyone does. Yeah, Shane was just on a panel talking about Lord of the Rings. So I'm happy to hear it went well. If there's anything you want to share, let me drop it in chat. Be cool. You start teaching tomorrow. Oh, he starts teaching Aristotle Ahegao face tomorrow. That's awesome. Yeah. So. But yeah. Speaking of like the demographic, what are you doing on Twitch? A lot of first-person shooters. It's like masculine techno-capitalism. And it's not to say there aren't women playing or female presenting people on Twitch playing those games too. But like I said, the demographics are this way. So, I am bucking the trend, not doing video games where anything dies. Okay, as always, but feel free to ask questions in chat or whatever else you are interested in. We're talking about Xenofeminist Hope and Dread. The books indeed admirably take, as the Germans say, Twitch is a real salami party. It is. It is. Although, depending where you go, it's less, but like, still, then you have to go look, you have to search that out, basically, if you're not looking to find the boys' club. The books indeed admirably take on this challenge by boldly selecting from the aforementioned theories and practices in terms of their utility for an unabashedly, fist-on-table, properly renewed, and sufficiently queered and transed feminist project. And I have to also say, I like reading this fucking paper. This is like real, like whoever wrote this, you can say it out loud without stumbling. I stumble so much reading stuff, and you can see that the words here are not like easy words. We've got like trans-starred feminist project, and like I can read this. It's amazing. I love this writer, whoever they are. In Hester's book, this is done largely by critiquing and partly expropriating 1970s feminist struggles, such as those done through female healthcare collectives and feminist eco-criticisms. The work of Maria Mies, here especially, as in past cyber-feminist writings, receives a fair amount of disapproval from Hester. Yeah, it's the worst. I want some German beer. I haven't drank any German beer. That's a goal now I have. Hester convincingly argues that these feminisms have been too keen on an essentialist and too female idea of nature for defining their politics, either through an exclusivist idea of what or who counts as female, mostly white heterosexual middle-class women with reproductive capacity, or through faux futuristic politics of the child by claiming that women care for the future because they supposedly bear children. Although convincingly brought, these critiques from Hester are nonetheless hardly new. Judith Butler's Gender Trouble, Feminism, and the Subversion of Identity in the 90s, of course, already critiqued the ways in which a certain heteronormative feminist politics parades as universal by making an appeal to the supposedly universal categories of woman or women. Butler thus famously illustrates that in the end, nature or sex was always already cultural, or rather a performance of gender derived from an ongoing repetition from the very outset. However, the manner in which Hester seeks to cobble together whatever can be saved from the early cyber-feminism and feminist eco-criticism for xenofeminist activism is certainly novel. The novelty here lies in how this activism understands that it cannot remain an old-fashioned revolutionary project, but that it, like the continuously transforming and changing face of contemporary patriarchal techno-heterocapitalism, necessarily needs to keep morphing and mutating through times to come. Like, how often do you get to say contemporary patriarchal techno-heterocapitalism? This is just fantastic. And I don't mean to be like belittling this stuff. Like, this is important, like philosophy. It's just, I'm shocked at how well this just like flows off the tongue. So, anywho. Yes, I like you, Ingrid Hooft, whoever you may be. Hester's book here silently also echoes feminist and post-structuralist insights from the work of Simone de Beauvoir or Jacques Derrida, even if Hester would probably find post-structuralism's textual politics too limiting. These insights nonetheless also understand that a subversive feminist politics based on static notions of identity or of the system tends to ultimately shoot itself in the foot as it fails to realize how identity and system are always mutually constitutive. Steeping itself foremost in a very nicely narrated mutation of the work of early anti-naturalist feminists Firestone and Valerie Solanas, whom she never mentions but whose Cutting Up Men manifesto could be grasped as proto-gender abolitionist. Sexy continental compound academic labels. Yeah, you got to give some of these. Yeah, too much analytic philosophy will rot your brain, I think. And like they just can't write. Like I have constant complaints about philosophy writing. Yeah, I don't know if you were here, Irisol, but I had a short paper rejected this afternoon, and I sent it out immediately almost. But like they rejected it on the grounds that it was a response paper. Now, it's not. It was kind of a response paper, but I had a lot of extra content at the end, and I was like, look, like all philosophy papers are response papers. Carnophallogocentrism, not bad. But I was like, all philosophy papers are response papers. Yeah, oh yeah, it was within 2 weeks. It was fine. It was a desk rejection. Within 2 weeks, I have no problem with that. But like, I just have a problem with people blanket rejecting response papers. What isn't a response paper? Like, all of these things are response papers. Everything in philosophy. And as Valpo mentioned, everything's a footnote on Plato. It's like, come on. It's they're just looking for reasons to, not have to worry about it, because I understand that there's a crunch in what they can actually have reviewed. They don't have enough reviewers or time to review stuff. I understand, but like it's stupid because they took the surface that it was a response paper, which it was in part it was, but like they kind of missed the forest for the trees in that case. Because I had really good content coming towards the end of the paper, even though the first half looked very responsive. So I'm just like, whatever. So I sent it right back out. I added a little bit to the conclusion to make it sound a little bit better, but that's about it. Anyway, but whatever. But like, this is the thing. After reading all these papers, I'm just like, what are you doing that you can't actually get the words to flow? Like, why would you write crappy papers at this point? That's what we should be focusing on. If you want people to understand your ideas, they have to be able to read your fucking papers. This person, I don't know if I agree with them at all, but at least I'm happy reading their paper. And like I was saying in the previous philosophy roulette, we were talking about aphorisms. They have to be memorable. They have to be memorable. What is it to be memorable? Why? Why does it catch your attention? This can be done. It can be done. This Ingrid Hoof has done it. Okay. Hester imaginatively seeks to do such metamorphosing through recalling a device with a fascinating medical feminist lineage that had me shiver with delight and apprehension, namely the Del-M, a DIY menstrual extraction tool used in the 1970s North American feminist collectives that could also be used to terminate early pregnancies. Interesting. The Del-M, Hester argues, included the activation of networks of community support and solidarity around a host of issues such as access to affordable healthcare, housing, childcare, and police brutality. As such, it is imperative for queer and trans feminism, mindful of ecological disaster today, to see how the re-engineering of certain devices with similar potential as the Del-M can once more create the activation of such networks of kin-making, a conceptual and biological practice Hester borrows from Haraway's Staying with the Trouble, making kin in the Cthulhu scene. The Cthulhu scene! That's amazing! Fit for present day challenges, and it's Haraway 2016. Okay. However, in doing so, Hester, for my taste, relies rather too heavily on a discourse of freedom, control, and autonomy that sees freedom largely in terms of reappropriating the shackles that currently oppress via a common experience of alienation. This discourse no doubt has its admirable precedents in, for instance, Sadie Plint's Cyber-Feminist Zeros and Ones and Mark's Fragment on Machines. Yeah, Cthulhu scene, exactly, Aristotle. Which also argues for revolution via the very experiences and tools of alienation. But though such a willful complicity with modern technologies, as well as Hester's demand for the continued utility of the theories and tools under discussion, certainly may have its outlook radical political change and solidarity, I worry that this gesture remains empty if not accompanied by a more acute analysis of the extreme differential effects of these tools across lines of class, gender, and race. It is true. Anytime we start adopting a technology, it gets, co-opted by people in power. And so this is a good point. If you're thinking that there is some old tech you can repurpose, you have to be careful that it's not just going to be easily co-opted immediately by the people that don't want you to have power. And so this is a good point that, like, if you're really trying to make something that's going to have an effect over time, not just revolution, but like a continuing sort of, movement, you can't let it get co-opted. And how do you do that? Okay. And though obviously the general claim to more freedom and autonomy is paramount to an emancipatory politics by those oppressed or marginalized groups who in the past have had to suffer from severe lack of access or movement, whether actual or virtual, such a claim is also rather symptomatic of the general cybernetic logic that suffuses contemporary culture and society, in which such demands and their terminology have possibly entered a moment of reversal. Yeah, I mean, tech now is being used to oppress, not emancipate. In other words, the prosumer logic of current technocapitalism renders such emancipatory demands eerily, if perhaps not totally, in tune with current structures of cybernetic oppression and subjugation instead of being subversive of these structures. The stakes of feminist intervention have therefore possibly also been raised beyond the simple purview of freedom, autonomy, and or empowerment. The constant demand for utility is within such a reversed logic typical of the prevalent instrumentalism of technocapitalism, and indeed of a widespread masculinist and militarist worldview in which the human agent is hubristically and problematically seen as the wielder of tools. Yeah, so this is a problem. This is our current techno-fascism that we live in. I say this all the time, actually, that we live in the current the current thing at the moment is techno-fascism. The people in charge of the technology think they should be in charge of like everything, basically. So this is like, you get like, oh yeah, you should just put like Google or just like Steve Jobs or like Apple or something. Of course, Steve Jobs is not around anymore, but like, this is a thing. These are the people that are basically think they should be in charge because they're good at the tech. That's not a good way to do anything, because you're just going to gain all the old problems with these people in charge. It's not a solution. So you have to get beyond the simple purview of what everyone's been saying, because it's already been co-opted by the powers that be, which currently are the techno-fascists, at least in my opinion. Although I guess people in chat would probably be able to correct me and tell me I'm doing things oversimplified things, but whatever. Anywho, in light of this, I suggest that the extrapolation that Hester undertakes from the 1970s DIY implements like the Dell M to contemporary info and biohacking tools, even if such contemporary tools should, according to her, be scrutinized first for their potential to be diverted away from the gatekeepers, repurposed, scaled, and intersectionally applied. Usually I'm correcting you. Shane, I know jack shit about the world compared to you. I'm very good at philosophy sometimes. I know a few things in philosophy. I'm not correcting anybody about anything, really. I just keep my mouth Shane, I know enough to keep my mouth shut when I don't know anything. That's basically how it goes. Yeah. Yeah, so things need to be repurposed, scaled, and intersectionally applied, and thus become part of what she calls protocol feminism. Risks becoming too complicit in the militaristic techno-capitalism by neglecting the fact that such cybernetic reversal has taken place. Dude, in today's world, that is a superpower. I appreciate that. When am I getting paid? I need to like not be as poor as I am. I'd like to get more money. Do some fun things. I haven't taken a fucking vacation in years. Granted, I haven't been working all that hard, but I could completely, yeah. It's, there's a great quote by a philosopher. It's one of these continentals. But, being a hero means you can be betrayed without consequence. So yeah. It's like, they said it better than I did too. Being a superhero means... there's like a single word for being betrayed without you can be betrayed just like whatever. So it's like, that's what it is to be a superhero. It's like, yeah, it's terrible to be a fucking superhero. I don't mind having a superpower, but I just want to get, like, I'd rather, have things be easier at this point. It's because, like, things suck. Yeah. But anyway, we're talking about feminism that's been, super villain. Yeah, I know. I'm always sort of thinking, like, do I become a Bond villain? Like, Bond villains have, like, a great life. Like, it really seems like Bond villains go away. Yeah, see, I'm not dark side. I mean, Bond villains, like, some of the Bond villains, like, are really stylish. Think Yaphet Kotto. I mean, I don't know how Bond, how far into Bond you are. But, like, Yaphet Kotto in, Live and Let Die. I mean, we're talking about a guy with style, money, power. Like, that was cool. I mean, what's it called? Dr. No has been, like, parodied for all of history now. It's like he's just great with his, like, metal hands and stuff and, like, his gray suit. He had his own island. And what was the man with the golden gun? Again, style. I mean, what was that guy's name? He was, the fucking thing. A lot of Batman villains are PhDs. Yeah, like, they seem to have a good life. That's right, Valbo. Shane says, I do have a tendency to go at the mouth about how smart I am. That seems to be a quality of villains. Yeah. That's true. They do like to get credit for being smart. I think I'm smart. I mean, it'd be hard to deny it, like, just being all the academic stuff I do. But, like, it's like, I don't find it useful to tell people that you're smart. I think that's a dumb way to go. Scaramanga, yes, exactly. Scaramanga, the man with the golden gun. But I was trying to think, because Shane's here, but I couldn't remember the guy that he played Saruman. That guy. That guy was apparently, he's done like a huge number of things. I think that guy was I was reading a small history of him. He was in like the British SAS. Yeah, you don't say. Oh, you just show it. You don't say it. Okay, there, Shane. Yeah, I have a nasty habit, and I even like telling these stories where I don't run my mouth too much. I try to keep my mouth shut nowadays. But I do like Christopher Lee. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, he was in the SAS. He, like, killed people for the British during World War II. And there was a certain scene I was reading, and Shane, correct me if I'm wrong, where someone was getting stabbed in Lord of the Rings, and, Peter Jackson, the director, was saying, "Oh, you should die like this." And Christopher Lee says, "No. That's not what happens when you stab someone in the back. That's not what they sound like. You shouldn't." Like, he knew what it sounded like when you stab someone in the back. And they die. Yeah. So he was getting stabbed? Okay. So, like, yeah, he already knew what it was to get stabbed in the back and die that way. It's like, oh, that's interesting that you know that. But yeah, like, I have way too much enjoyment if someone is getting arrogant in front of me, I will burn them down. It's like, do not be getting all arrogant like you're smarter than everyone else. I will fuck you up, like, fast. So I don't like to show I'm smart. I like to poke holes in other people being assholes. Smart people being assholes because they can. Oh, man. It's one of the things I'm so happy that I can go to Philosophy Talks in New York again. It raises the chance of me being able to blow someone up that deserves to be blown up. Oh. That was like one of my things I used to do in New York. It made me happy. Anywho, but okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, anywho, let's get back to the techno-feminism. Okay, surely, after all, the aesthetic and political affordances and properties of the non-network and elegant Del M are extremely different from those of the genetic and network tools. One could also object that the erosion or circumvention of gatekeeper and expert authority and the subsequent rise of self-help groups in past decades has not only thoroughly ambiguous consequences for groups marginalized along the lines of class and race, but also, again, symptomatic of the continuous emphasis on self-activity, participation, and self-sufficiency in our neoliberal, user-centric times. That's a great point. I had not thought about this. All these sort of, like, groups where you're supposed to go fix yourself, like self-help stuff, this is really a weird way of putting all the burden on people when maybe our communities need reinforcing, but having like self-contained self-help groups is maybe really not the way to go, because it gets you very user-centric, and that's may be just bad. That's interesting that the social organization has even started reflecting our bad habits. And I guess that makes sense, that social organization is going to reflect bad habits or habits that, the people in power want to emphasize. Well, not personal. Of course, I'm all for personal responsibility, but I'm saying that the social organization may not be the way we have organized our society. Maybe have some of our reflect some of our problems. I mean, that's not a crazy thought, but it's just I just hadn't thought about these sort of self-help groups. The way that we organize how people get help really may be a symptom of some of the problems. Not really a solution, but like a symptom of it. Shane says, social structures put people in power who reinforce those structures to stay in power. Yeah. I mean, that's how politicians stay politicians. I hadn't thought about this sort of like ground level, even what we thought was we were doing stuff to help ourselves really may have been entrenching the power structures. Okay. What typifies his lack of understanding by Hester of how cybernetic technologies partly lock the individual into a form of submission that is discursively sold to them as empowerment emerges also in the total lack of discussion by Hester around surveillance as a central logic of technocapitalism, and also especially when trans subject discusses their issue, for instance, on a subreddit online forum. Yeah, so this is where we're getting this sort of user-centric stuff, and pernicious is, I think, the right word for it, Shane. It really is. I like how they put like subreddit in like scare quotes. I think almost everyone knows what Reddit is at this point, which is interesting. The demand for a feminist protocol, a term that Hester niftily, oh my god, I have not heard people use nifty in a while. Nifty is a great word. I was asked, when I was an undergrad, I was like, I think nifty is an interesting word. So I go to my, actually, he was a Heidegger professor. I said, you ever hear anyone use nifty like in philosophy? Like, when do you hear nifty? He goes, I don't know. He's like, could you use nifty in a sentence? So I say, that's a nifty proof. That is when nifty would get used. Like in a mathematical term almost. So like, this is interesting. When you're talking word choice, nifty, or like proof, nifty, like, so this is a terminological thing. That's when nifty shows up. I have not heard that word. I think nifty needs to get used more. But anyway, Hester niftily takes from Alex Galloway's protocol how control exists after decentralization, also forgets how some early cyberfeminism fell into the trap of arguing that new media technologies supposedly had a certain rhizomatic and hence decentralizing logic, all the while forgetting that the internet was from the very start, and still is, an utterly hierarchical, organized military corporate network. Well, yes, it is. Although the Del-M, then, indeed may have easily led to a protocol of dissemination relying on human solidarity, coalition, and publicly available yet underground facilities, the internet is in fact the hardwired substitution, or one could say the reversed or introverted material apparatus for such human affective relations, its infrastructure all too intimately bound up with contemporary, faux-empowering, prosumerist surveillance practices. Is that fair? I mean, just because it started off that way does not mean it is that way now. Like, just because it started off that way in like the late 70s, early 80s, starting out as a military corporate network, hierarchically organized, it still is in some sense, but I think this is a little bit unfair to the internet because it's not a new thing. And so the idea that it's just you're going to go back to calling it that from what it was to what it is now, it may still be it is still hierarchically organized military and corporate network, but it is not, I mean, just from the very start, and still is. See, this is interesting. From the very start, and still is. These are two different claims, and I'm not sure. This maybe the author is right here, but I'm not sure this is exactly right at this point. That's fair. But it 100% is a prosumerist surveillance machine at this point. Faux empowering, though. Okay. Author says, I also miss some acknowledgement of the differential messiness on the ground when intersectionally implementing such tools of freedom and autonomy, even if Hester touches upon some potential complications in the final chapter of her book. What to make, for instance, of the Del M as a much more ambiguous tool itself, in which access to the Del M collectives as the mark of a lack of privilege also puts such underprivileged women as women's healthcare worker Louise Tyrer, in the case against menstrual extraction, suggest in danger of disproportionate physiological risk. Closer to the kind of protocol xenofeminism that Hester imagines, what indeed about the hydra of black market pharmacies that have been made accessible in the digital age that dangerously offer new opportunities for people to root around judicial and medical institutions? Situations and their contexts, as well as so-called tools to be re-engineered from those contexts, are always infinitely more fraught with ethical complexity than a mere adding of the demand for intersectionality and feminist utility might suggest. Yeah, I wonder, I don't know if this exists. I bet this fucking does. Are there recipes for making Plan B? Could you just make Plan B in a lab? Like a pill that would create a an abortion pill in a lab? Is there a open source way for making this? And if there isn't, I bet there is going to be very soon. These are probably available somewhere on the internet. I mean, don't go looking. I don't want to get anyone in trouble looking for weird chemicals and stuff. That don't put it in your body if you don't know what it is. But that, yeah, I bet Lumpy would know. But this is one of those things. Why go make meth? You could go make Plan B and you're gonna get sold. But this is it's gonna be available. If it isn't, and that's a really good question. You're gonna be buying birth control on the dark net in the United States if things keep going certain ways, which is a weird fucking thing. And this is the old getting abortions in back alleys. This is not a the consequences of this is just sort of mind-boggling, especially with the readily available of science kits. Maybe you can do this. I don't even know. What was I watching? I was watching In the Heat of the Night, which is a fantastic movie if you haven't seen it, but it has to do with, I don't want to spoil it if you don't know. Classic movie with Sidney Poitier. But yeah. You bet it wouldn't be too difficult. The hardest part would be getting the source chemicals. Yeah, that's one of the things. I don't know how hard it is to get those chemicals. I don't know what their chemicals are. Maybe it's more difficult. Maybe it's not so difficult. I just don't know. Okay, this is also to say that technologies as such are better thought as what Derrida calls pharmaca, or poison and medicine all in one. In other words, one cannot so easily split off while simply discarding what is unhelpful and ethical feminist agential use of any technology from its dark or immoral heteromasculinist uses. These two always go hand in hand. All medicine will kill you if you take too much of it. Basically, chemo, if you get cancer, is just a poison that kills the chemo faster than it kills you. That's literally what it is. Aristotle says, now Red on YouTube makes all sorts of insane stuff without a professional affiliation. Yeah, I mean, I read all sorts of philosophy shit without, I got no professional affiliation. I bet there's people who are unfucking believable at chemistry or physics doing stuff that they are just, I have a friend who knows physics very well. He's SPSH Kairos. He's doing AI stuff on Twitch, but he has I think a physics PhD, and he knows a lot about electricity, and he always says all the people talking about electricity on YouTube need to basically stop because they are way too dangerous for what they're saying, and God forbid anyone else does what they do and are not as lucky or as maybe hiddenly as safe as the people on YouTube. It's insane what you can do and what people are doing. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's scary. He says never deal with electricity if you don't know exactly what you're doing. Never ever do it, because I mean, if your skin is even just a little bit wet, the amount of electricity that can get through your skin if it's wet, it goes way down. Because a lot of times people say, oh, your skin doesn't conduct electricity. Yeah, a little bit of sweat will completely negate that. Just a little bit of water, and then you can get yourself electrocuted, and then you're shit out of luck and you'll have heart trouble. Okay, anywho, Be safe on the internet, kids. Rant over. This means that technologies certainly have subversive effects, but these effects express themselves rather beyond the xenofeminist agent as unforeseen accidents, or events in which any technological or ideological system, insofar as it seeks to eliminate the other through extending its controlling grasp, radically deconstructs itself. It is this accident that we see happening today, for instance, through the ways in which ecological disaster increasingly marks the limits of current technocapitalism, even if such disaster, and I certainly thoroughly agree with Hester here, is also a simulation brought on by our problematically pristine image of nature and the child. Even so, the master's tools can disseminate the master's house, indeed, but what this then requires is, as Haraway also stressed in an interview with Mike Gain more than a decade ago, as a logic of noise or breakdown in light of the new techno-biopower. Yeah, I mean, this is what we got now. Everything's being treated like an accident. Oh, a forest fire. It was a transformer blew up. That was an accident. It's like, no, it's not an accident. We're having global warming and it's overloading the system. Why is that an accident? It's not an accident. It was a known breakdown when things get overused, and that's what's happening now. So it's like, it's these forest fires in like California, they're calling them accidents because that takes away the responsibility, because if it's a natural disaster, as they were saying here, we're abusing the term nature. If things are natural disasters, then no one's responsible. But it's not a natural disaster that we have caused climate change in some sense, and so these aren't accidents anymore. There is something here. Aristotle says, if I have to know what I'm doing, then I never get to experiment, but if I never experiment, I'll never learn what I'm doing. Yeah, paradox of mad scientists, but there's safety protocols. You have to know the safety protocols, then go forth and do. But you have to be careful around certain things, like electricity will get you killed if you are uncareful. So it's like one of those. And Aristotle, are you telling me that you have not watched what the fuck? I'm blanking on our favorite movie. There is all hope. That's funny, Shane. Who do you think follows ethics? But yeah. What's it? Perfection. I'm blanking on the fucking name. Graboids. The fucking graboids. Yeah, whatever that movie is with the graboids. Didn't you hear Fred Ward say, never touch electricity. It's one job. Yeah, Tremors. I'd never work on electricity. That's one job you won't ever find me in. See, you know this. Only the saps like you. Everything you need to know you can learn in Tremors, I guess. Capitalism, like entrepreneurship. Not to work with electricity if you don't know what you're doing. But yes. Okay. It does hold up. I think I said to you once, and I'm losing my voice. Tremors has heart, and that goes a long way. Okay. All this therefore leads me to worry that Hester's xenofeminism may in fact hamper a more radical or delightfully monstrous imagination around queer and trans activist possibilities, even if it acknowledges that it itself is riddled with internal tensions, insofar as its ultimate aim should be to transform political systems and disciplinary structures. Given all this, the actual Laboria Cubanics, the Xenofeminist Manifesto and website, in fact, even if at first glance seemingly more entangled in that cyber surveillance web by way of its online instantiation, remain delightfully more ambiguous and impenetrable in their more obviously spectacular and nostalgic seduction. The manifesto then offers quite a different kind of proposition from Hester's no doubt compelling book, which nonetheless remains a more classically argued academic text, and as such firmly implicated in the performative logic of theorizing and critique as part of the consumerist circulation of academic information. As the manifesto most frighteningly proposes, we want neither clean hands nor beautiful souls, neither virtue nor terror. We want superior forms of corruption. Indeed, my being otherwise affected by the manifesto then possibly illustrates how hope and dread keep forcing themselves to the foreground as central affects in relation to these critical manifestations, both virtual and real. In this turn, I argue, usefully points toward a potentially more ingenious xenofeminist politics of sneaky consciousness raising, and fatality around these books' entanglements with technocapitalism, the fatal finally being the more expedient stranger to its cyber logic. Okay, she's Ingrid M. Hooft is an assistant. Oh, I don't know if they are an assistant professor in Department of Media and Culture. Interesting. It is her research. Okay. Interesting stuff. So, yeah, this is like, how do we actually use the current technology? Like, actually use current technology to do anything in current society? And that's not just going to get played into, big tech. I have no fucking clue. Now, these people seem to have one way of thinking about it, like the xenofeminism way. And the author here has some problems because Ingrid Hooft says that basically they have not considered the technology itself as a tool of those in power well enough. And that's a bad problem if you're going to have one of these manifesto saying what can be done nowadays. Shane says, I just talked with my marriage and family class today if the interaction on the internet with a potential significant other could be considered getting to know someone. Well, what would they say? I would assume they had to say yes. If they said no, I mean, maybe... Okay, so it was fake. Because if they're not saying no, they're saying it was fake. Okay, yeah, so why did they keep doing it? Because the poor kids, they got nothing else. They're looking for the real, and they can't find it. That's what their problem is. That's why they think it's fake. Well, maybe that's what I assume. Why would they keep doing it? Yeah, what did they say? I want to know now. The poor kids nowadays. I don't feel bad for them. It's just like things are fucking messy nowadays. And at least I'm old enough to have seen things be slightly different. And just getting worse nowadays. But at least I have some idea what the fuck is going on. I don't think the kids have either. I mean, they're going to figure stuff out. They're not dumb. But like it's, how are they going to process this? Shane says his interpretation of what they respond was, paraphrase, it's easier to get lied on the internet in person. No. I get that. Like they were treating getting to know someone as a pretty significant getting to know. Like it's a very hard, like a very strong sense of knowledge of someone, and you can't do that on the internet. I get that. Some people are using getting to know in the sense like, oh, do I really know this person? Like, is it a good person? Are they my friend? On the internet, they're getting some version of people that they want to show, and I can appreciate that. But I guess there's the question: how do you actually get the authenticity? Is what they're asked. Their answer is that you can't guarantee anything authentic on the internet, and that's fair. And they know that. Oh, it's worse than I'm interpreting. Their assumption was that they were going to get either lied to in person or get lied to on the net. At least they could hide their own emotions on the net. Ah, yes. Yeah, that isn't what I was thinking. And so yeah, they're assuming everyone is trying to put up a front on the net. Yeah, and this is why I feel bad for the kids, because I feel like they're under a tremendous amount of pressure nowadays. And so they at least like the internet because then they get to put up whatever front they want. Yeah. Yeah, no, I get that. But then how do they ever get to know anybody? Maybe they don't. So there's a question. Yeah. Well, this is what I've started to understand from the younger folks I know. That they basically are getting lied to a lot. And I guess this is part of what's getting talked about in this. It's like all the tools that they are using that they know about are basically being used by other people for ulterior purposes. And so, yeah. I get that they're moving away from dating apps. Yeah, like there's what I've heard older folks call them conservative. And it's not conservative. It's that they realize that they they can't trust what they've been given at this point, and so they're reacting against it. So yeah, you have to have some, like, even to even use a dating app, you have to have some trust in the other people on the other side, and they don't have any reason to have that trust. But like, this is the thing, all these technologies that were discussed in this paper have been basically co-opted at this point. And so how do we actually have a technofeminism of the future where it's not getting co-opted? And that's hard. And so this is sort of interesting. So this idea of protocol, how you can control it. So how control exists after decentralization, and then the feminist protocol that they were talking about here, is there a way to actually continue to have something that resists the media technologies? And the author said that it failed. So I don't know, but again, what they got to here is where this pharmaca, where things are not actually medicines, they're both medicine and poison. So you have to, in some sense, you're balancing out the goods and the bads in the cybernetics, that you are augmenting yourself but also hurting yourself by all of these things. So this is the question: where is the mediation? Like, what is the way in which you can use technology so it does not get co-opted? And that's really hard. I don't know how to do that, especially nowadays where everything is surveillance capitalism and is being used to, like, you know, techno biopower, control people's lives, basically monitor the whole thing. So but yeah, it seems like it's interesting stuff, like that they haven't done a bad job in the Xenofeminist manifesto by using some nostalgic throwbacks to older tech, using like the old classic style website, the old manifesto style writing that, you know, has like a history that you can look through time, different kinds of manifestos and how they work, or failed to work. So this is the sort of thing that, like, what technology can we pull from the past, or maybe even like some sort of future tech that isn't going to be as easily co-opted over time, and that we can work with over time to continue to, you know, make progress in the different areas we want to make progress in. Yeah. So I don't know if I have a whole lot more to say, but it's like, I just really like this paper. I don't know enough about the feminist philosophy or like all the different like lines of thought that we're going through here, but as I said, it read well, even using very big words. This person quoted someone, I mean, "Staying with the Trouble, Making Kin in the Cthulhu Scene" by Haraway 2016. Cthulhu Scene, I mean, that's amazing. Of course it wasn't this author, but like, you know, it was at least quoted. Why would you not say Cthulhu Scene at this point? Like, we're in the cosmic horror phase of our existence. And so, yeah. Yeah, Donna Haraway, "Staying with Trouble, Making Kin in the Cthulhu Scene." Yeah. Alright, I don't have anything else to say. It's getting closer to midnight here on the east coast of the United States.